if you're like me, but I am obsessed with the idea of frameworks. Having a multiple step process or an acronym to help me remember and sort out my mind is something that I have absolutely spent the last couple of years trying to find as many as I possibly can. In fact, I have an entire Notion board just of my favorite frameworks, acronyms, and shortcuts that are hacks for my life. So because I have so many, I thought I would do a video today where I talk about my 13 favorite, or at least 13 of the ones that come to mind when I'm talking about frameworks. So let's talk about it today. So if you didn't know, one of my favorite frameworks of all time, and the one that I probably teach the most, is the 13 pillar framework. This is a framework I created as sort of a converted form of the PPV formula from August Bradley. So I took part of his framework and kind of customized it for myself and then changed it and added some things and made some colors. And so my life is organized in these 13 pillars. So I thought today it would be fun to go through each of these pillars and come up with a framework for each of them. Ones that I have gotten from books or from videos or people that I follow. So there's gonna be a ton of resources below, but before we get started, I wanted to let you guys know that I am coming out with a new course this September, in the end of September, and it's called Simplify Your Digital Life, and it is going to be all about organizing your files on your computer. This is a topic I've gotten so many questions about, using Google Photos, organizing your computer beyond Notion, and so I'm super excited that this is going to be coming out. You can join the waitlist below, or if you're watching this video after September, you can check it out below. I'm really excited about this course, and so let's just get started with the 13 frameworks that run my life and that I would recommend, that I remember, that I think you guys should know too. If you guys haven't watched my 13 pillar video, I recommend watching that because it kind of goes through the entire 13 pillars, but I'm gonna go through each of the pillars today and talk about a framework that fits inside each of them. So the first pillar we're gonna talk about is business projects. This is really just talking about running a business, and so one of my favorites for this is Donald Miller's frameworks. If you haven't followed Donald Miller, he wrote the book Building a Story Brand, but one of my favorite frameworks is actually one from his more recent book, How to Grow Your Small Business. He uses an analogy of an airplane and using parts of an airplane to actually have your business be modeled in that way. There's basically, like, in order to fly a plane, you have to have so many parts working, and it's the same with running a small business. And I absolutely love the metaphor of an airplane, and I highly recommend checking out both this book as well as his last book, which is all about marketing and building your brand. Okay, so the second framework is part of the clients pillar. And for this one, I got a book called The Consistency Pill, and inside of it, there's something called the daily method of operations. Basically, it's the 3-5-5-5-3 method. And what this is create 3 pieces of content on social media, meet 5 new contacts per day, invite 5 people to look at a presentation, which could mean many things, follow up with 5 prospects, and then 3 prospects to watch a video or presentation. So basically, this is like a way to think about every day reaching out to more people. So when you have clients, when you have leads, how to kind of have a daily operation set up for how you're going to reach out to them. And I really like this concept of having like a daily checkoff of kind of creating ways that you can monetize yourself with your clients. So highly recommend the book, The Consistency Pill. I really liked it. It's a great tool that I have come away with. Okay, so for the next one, I had so many frameworks for this one, but the one that I always think about is the Endless Content Generator framework from Dickie Bush and Nicholas Cole. I actually took their course, Ship 30 for 30 last year. Highly recommend it. It is absolutely an amazing course on writing. But as someone who does a ton of content on content, I actually created my own framework as well. So it's called the Master Content Framework. So M stands for memorable content. So remembering what you see. A stands for audience connection, coming up with something relatable that the audience would really like. S stands for shareability and novelty. This is where it's something new and interesting, but also shareable. People want to share this content. T is templated format, so having something that's consistent, so a template or a series, something people can binge. E is engagement and storytelling, so coming up with a really good hook and telling a good story. And then finally, R is resolving their problem. If your content doesn't resolve a problem, what's the point? So I really like this framework. I came up with it like 6 months ago. I haven't used it too much, but now that I think about it, I'm like, I should talk about this more. So that's my personal framework that I made for content. Okay, I don't have one for entertainment because I don't like, entertainment to me doesn't need a framework. So we'll move on to family. So I read this book called Loving Like You Mean It, and there's a really cool framework in this book on how to communicate. So step 1, recognize and name. Step 2, stop, drop, and stay. Step 3, pause and reflect. And step 4 is mindfully relate. Basically, this is just a communication framework. Highly recommend reading the book. I can't really go into it too much in this video, but basically having a way to communicate with people and share your feelings is really important. So having a framework, a multi-step process is so helpful. The next one, the framework is for friends and social networking. The book I recommend for this one is The Science of Stuck. There's a whole chapter on building adult friendships, and she talks about the different types of friends that you have in your life. This is kind of a quick graphic of what it looks like, but I highly recommend reading this. This is actually my #1 book of 2022. So if you're looking to better build friendships and relationships, I highly recommend The Science of Stuck. It's an amazing book. Okay, so when it comes to home and household, this is a recent read of mine, How to Keep House While Drowning by Casey Davis. If you don't follow her on TikTok, you should. She does a lot of ADHD content, and she has this 5-step method that I wanted to share. So it's called the 5 things cleaning method. Number 1, trash. Get rid of trash first, which I love that there's an order, like get rid of trash first. Number 2, laundry. So get rid of the laundry because that's stuff that you need. 3, dishes. 4th, things that have a place, and 5th, things that don't have a place. And I was like, that's such a great little thing to remember when you're cleaning. Start with this, end with this. And I love it. So if you haven't read How to Keep House While Drowning, it is a great book, highly recommend it. Okay, for health, there was a couple of different options I thought about for this as my favorite framework, but the one that I really stick with a lot is the one from the book Glucose Revolution. And it's how to eat food in the right order to not spike your glucose too much. Highly recommend looking at this graphic. So basically you start with vegetables and fiber first, then you eat fats and proteins, and you finish with carbs and sugars. I just love this because it made me realize, okay, I should always start with the salad. It actually made me want to eat more salad or fiber, or a lot of times apple cider vinegar to start your meal. It can reduce the amount of glucose that you need, which helps with weight loss, helps with so many things. So highly recommend the Glucose Revolution if you want to learn more about this. There's some other ones too about time restricted eating and fasting. I do a lot of stuff on health in my personal life, so that's other things that maybe I'll talk about in the future if I do a part 2 of this video. Okay, for mental clarity, the book that I think really stuck out, or this person that kind of stuck out to me, was Phil Stutz. If you haven't watched his documentary on Netflix, highly recommend it. I know Jonah Hill's involved, it's a little weird now, but Phil Stutz is a great guy, and there's part of this book that he talked about where basically we're stuck in our own comfort zone, and in order to actually move past that, we actually have to go through something where you feel pain in order to actually get the outcome you need. So instead of just staying in our comfort zone, getting through the pain is actually what gets us to what we want. So highly recommend the book, The Tools. He actually has, I think, another book coming out soon, but highly recommend that one if you're trying to get through. Another book that I'd recommend about this topic is The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. I thought about that one as well. Just if you're trying to get over any mental hurdles, highly recommend both of those books. Okay, for mind expansion, there was so many different topics I could go down. There's just, that's a lot of what my frameworks are. But the one that I thought about was with goal setting, and it's the idea of process versus outcome goals. I really stuck with that over the last couple of years. I did a whole video on goal setting if you want to check that out, but I just think it's really important to have kind of a structure for your life and that sort of thing. Another thing I thought about was daily planning, or the 12-week year, another great book, or Everything in Its Place, which talks about a daily mise en place. There's so many great books around mind expansion learning, and I couldn't even narrow it down. There's just too many, but I probably will expand upon some of them in the future. Okay, so for the last couple, for personal finance and admin, this one, I thought about a book I just read called The Parable of the Pipeline, which basically talks about there was a man who was running with a bunch of buckets to get water from one part of the city to the other, and he was doing that back and forth and just running forever, and he was looking at this other guy who was just building a pipeline. He's like, oh, that's gonna take forever, blah, 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 blah. And then basically it took a while to build the pipeline, but then when he did, the water could flow from one to the other, and then the other man just got really old and tired and was just I can't carry buckets anymore, and when he can't carry buckets, he can't get paid. That was basically the whole book. But basically it talks about how you should build a pipeline of money or things coming to you instead of constantly carrying buckets back and forth. Basically, they're like getting a job and, you know, trading time for money. You can have things flowing in, which I was like, that's such a good analogy. Highly recommend the book. It's not very long, but it's a great just like parable about building, you know, passive income and different forms of wealth, which I think is really helpful. So the last one that I thought about for sales and pricing, there's a couple different books that come to mind. One of them is What Your Customers Want, I think is what it's called. It's like a behavioral economics book. Highly recommend it. But the one thing that I also recommend setting up for yourself is an offer ladder. If you have a business, setting up an offer ladder where you start with like a free offer and move into higher priced offers, that visual really helped me over the years to kind of understand how online businesses work and just kind of the sales funnel process. I've done a ton of trainings on sales funnels, so I'm very well versed in that now. And so I've just done so much work in the last couple of years on these topics. So that was kind of a really fast run through of my favorite frameworks, but I just wanted to make this video because I have so many frameworks rattling around in my head, and I just thought I would share some of the ones that really stuck with me, the ones that really like I took to heart, that were from books that I read that I still remember to this day. Because what I found with nonfiction books, which I do read a lot of, if there's not like a framework or a takeaway, it's hard for me to always remember. So I think that these books had a great way of coming up with some sort of process that you could remember. So I'll link all the books below. Let me know if you want to do more videos like this. I have so many of these, you guys. Again, I have an entire Notion board of just frameworks that I've spent last year like curating and finding screenshots that I've taken over the last 6 years, and I've just, you know, books that I've taken photos of. I document everything. So if there's any questions that you guys have or thoughts, or what is your favorite framework, leave them down below. I hope to do more videos like this. Anyways, hoping to do more ADHD Notion content moving forward. I wanted to do this video, just kind of break it up because I feel like I've been doing a lot of Notion stuff lately, and I